This story revolves around a resilient woman who, after being cruelly rejected by a billionaire for being obese, rebuilds her life with strength and purpose. But the final confrontation and new beginning will leave you speechless. Drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from and which emoji would describe this inspiring and heartwarming journey. The late afternoon sun bathed Beverly Hills in a golden glow, reflecting off the pristine shop windows of Rodeo Drive. The street, famous for its designer boutiques and sleek luxury cars, buzzed with excitement on that gala evening. It was the grand opening of the 100th store of Luxe Éclat, the beauty brand owned by Dominic Vanderbilt. A 28-year-old billionaire is notorious for his womanizing ways, as for his exorbitantly priced creams and exclusive perfumes. The store, a temple of white marble and smoked glass, exuded sophistication, with crystal chandeliers hanging from the ceiling and shelves displaying bottles that looked like liquid jewels. The crowd of celebrities, influencers, and tycoons mingled, champagne flutes clinking and laughter echoing as photographers' flashes captured the glamour. Amid the frenzy, Mia Harper, 25, moved with grace among the guests. Hired as a saleswoman to demonstrate Luxe Éclat's new releases, she was a vision in her own right. Her simple yet elegant black dress hugged her slender frame, and her brown hair fell in soft waves over her shoulders. Her green eyes, lively and alert, shone with an intelligence that contrasted with her humble origins. The daughter of a librarian from Fresno, Mia had grown up surrounded by old books and deep conversations with her father, a man passionate about philosophy, history, and the arts. He had taught her to love ideas, question the world, and never feel inferior, even in a setting like this where money dictated status. Mia was at the corner of the store explaining the composition of an anti-aging serum to a middle-aged socialite when she felt a pair of eyes fixed on her. "It's made with black orchid extract and crushed pearls, ma'am," she said with a warm smile, as the client nodded, captivated by Mia's eloquence. Across the room, Dominic, impeccable in a navy Armani suit, held a champagne flute, but his attention wasn't on the drink. He was watching Mia, intrigued. She didn't look like the models or influencers who usually orbited his world. There was something different about her, an authenticity he rarely encountered. "Who's that?" Dominic asked his assistant Ethan, nodding discreetly. Ethan, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses, checked his clipboard. "Mia Harper, sir. Temporary hire for the event from a local event agency." Dominic raised an eyebrow. "Temporary, huh? Let's change that." He set his flute on a waiter's tray and crossed the room, ignoring greetings from other guests. Mia had just convinced the socialite to buy the serum when a deep voice interrupted her. "You seem to know a lot about black orchids. Did you read that in the manual? Or are you an impromptu expert?" She turned, startled, and came face to face with Dominic Vanderbilt. He was taller than he appeared in magazine covers, with dark brown hair swept back and a smile that blended charm and arrogance. Mia didn't flinch. "Neither manual nor improvisation," she replied with a slight edge of defiance. "My father taught me about botany when I was a kid. Black orchids are rare, but not as mysterious as your marketing team makes them seem." Dominic laughed, caught off guard. "Are you telling me my marketing's overblown?" Mia shrugged with a playful smile. "I'm just saying the truth doesn't need so much embellishment." The response threw him off. He was used to women fawning over him, not challenging him. "What's your name?" he asked, leaning in slightly. "Mia Harper," she answered, holding his gaze. "And yours, I assume, is the guy who signs the checks for this party." Dominic laughed loudly this time, drawing curious glances. "Dominic Vanderbilt, and you, Mia, just got my attention." The conversation flowed with surprising ease. Dominic, who rarely cared about anyone beyond a single night, found himself fascinated. Mia didn't just talk about beauty or products. She casually mentioned a Nietzsche quote her father loved, and when Dominic asked about it, she expounded on the idea of overcoming with a passion that left him speechless. "You're not like the people who usually come through here," he said, almost to himself. Mia smiled with a hint of irony. "Is that good or bad?" Dominic looked at her, his eyes gleaming. Very good. As the party continued, with soft music and the clinking of glasses, Dominic stayed by Mia's side, ignoring the curious looks from his guests. He asked about her life, and she spoke of her father, the small house in Fresno filled with books, the nights reading poetry and discussing history. "Have you read The Picture of Dorian Gray?" he asked, testing her. "I have," she replied, "and I think Wilde was right. Beauty is a mask, but the soul is what matters." Dominic fell silent for a moment as if trying to decipher her. When the night ended and the last guests left the store, Dominic found Mia organizing samples. "Mia, ever thought about working directly for me?" he asked, straight to the point. She looked up, surprised. "What do you mean?" "Personal assistant," he said with a confident smile. "You've got something this place lacks, brains. And I won't lie, you're easy on the eyes." Mia hesitated, aware of his reputation, but the salary he mentioned was more than she earned in months. "I'll think about it," she said, keeping her composure. Dominic handed her a card. "Think fast, I'm not one to wait." As Mia walked home under the lights of Beverly Hills, his card burned in her purse. She knew accepting the offer would thrust her into a dangerous world of glamour and temptation. But something about Dominic, maybe the glint of genuine curiosity in his eyes, made her consider it. At home, in a modest rented apartment on the Bay outskirts, she looked in the mirror, her green eyes reflecting determination. "You can do this, Mia," she whispered to herself. "But keep your eyes open." The next day, she called the number on the card. "Mr. Vanderbilt, this is Mia Harper, I'm in." On the other end, Dominic smiled. "Great, see you tomorrow, Mia, and please call me Dominic." His tone was warm, but there was a hint of something more, a challenge perhaps, or a promise. Mia hung up, her heart racing. She didn't know it, but that phone call would change her life forever. Dominic Vanderbilt's office, perched atop the Lux Eclat headquarters in the heart of Beverly Hills, was a sanctuary of power and opulence. The glass walls offered a panoramic view of the Los Angeles hills, bathed in the orange glow of the setting sun, while Italian designer furniture and minimalist artwork reinforced an aura of wealth. Mia Harper, now Dominic's personal assistant for a few weeks, moved through that space with a confidence that surprised even herself. Her first day had been a trial by fire, organizing Dominic's chaotic schedule, dealing with arrogant executives, and navigating the frenetic pace of the beauty industry. But Mia, with her sharp mind and natural charm, didn't just survive, she shone. That morning, Mia was on the phone with French suppliers, her firm voice echoing through the office. "No, monsieur, the bottles need to be here by Friday or we'll have a problem," she said, balancing courtesy and authority. Dominic, seated in his black leather chair, pretended to read a report, but his eyes were fixed on Mia. He was used. To assistants who stuck to "yes, sir." But Mia was different. She questioned decisions, suggested improvements, and sometimes challenged him outright. "You know you could have closed that deal for less, right?" she said after hanging up with a provocative look. Dominic laughed, leaning back in his chair. "Are you telling me how to do my job now, Harper?" Mia crossed her arms, a subtle smile on her lips. "Just saying that saving $500,000 wouldn't hurt your ego." Their banter became routine. Dominic, with his womanizing reputation, never kept assistants for long. They either fell for him or couldn't handle his intensity. But Mia was an enigma. She didn't flirt overtly, nor did she cower under his charm. In meetings, as executives discussed marketing strategies, Mia took meticulous notes but didn't hesitate to interrupt. "This campaign focuses too much on celebrities. Why not invest in real consumers? Everyday women who want to feel special." Her suggestion, delivered with conviction, silenced the room. Dominic, instead of bristling, nodded. "Draft it up. Mia, I want it in my inbox by tomorrow." She left the meeting with her heart racing, feeling, for the first time, that she was making her mark. Outside work, Dominic began inviting Mia to exclusive events. One night, he took her to a charity dinner at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, where the ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers and tables draped in white linen. Mia, in an emerald dress Dominic had insisted on buying. "You represent luxe éclat. Now you need to look the part," felt every eye on her. "You're stealing the show, you know," Dominic whispered as they passed a group of investors. Mia rolled her eyes but couldn't suppress a smile. "I'm not here to be the center of attention, Dominic. I'm here to make sure you don't forget your speech." He laughed, leaning closer. "And who says you can't do both?" The chemistry between them grew, fueled by conversations that went beyond work. One night after a long day reviewing contracts, Dominic invited Mia for a drink on his office terrace. Under the starry sky, with the city twinkling below, he asked about her life. Mia spoke of her father, of nights in Fresno discussing Plato and watching old movies. "He taught me that knowledge is the one thing no one can take from you," she said, gazing at the distant lights. Dominic, who rarely spoke of himself, opened up for the first time. "My father only taught me how to make money, and to trust no one." Mia looked at him, surprised by the vulnerability. "That sounds lonely," he shrugged, but his eyes betrayed an emotion he wouldn't admit. Weeks turned into months, and the line between professional and personal began to blur. Dominic took her to dinners at exclusive restaurants like Spago, where chefs prepared custom dishes. He surprised her with extravagant gestures, a first edition of Pride and Prejudice knowing her love for books, or tickets to an art exhibit at LACMA. Mia, initially cautious, began to let her guard down. "You're not as insufferable as the magazines say," she teased one night as they walked through the Griffith Observatory, the stars reflected in her eyes. Dominic stopped, holding her arm. "And you, Mia Harper, are so much more than I expected." The turning point came at a dinner in Dominic's mansion, a masterpiece of architecture in Beverly Hills, with floor-to-ceiling windows and an infinity pool that seemed to merge with the horizon. He greeted her with a smile that mixed nerves and determination. The table, adorned with candles and white flowers, exuded romance. After dinner, as they shared a bottle of Bordeaux, Dominic stood and took her hand. "Mia, I know I'm complicated, but you make me want to be better. Marry me." Mia's heart raced. She knew his reputation, the stories of broken hearts, but there, under his intense gaze, she wanted to believe in the man before her. "Are you serious, Dominic?" she asked, her voice trembling. He pulled a velvet box from his pocket, revealing a ring with a diamond that caught the light like a star. "I've never been more serious." Mia, tears in her eyes, nodded. Yes, the wedding was a Hollywood-worthy extravaganza held in the gardens of a Bel Air estate. Mia, in a custom lace dress, walked down the aisle under the gaze of hundreds of guests, from movie stars to industry tycoons. Dominic, in a flawless tuxedo, seemed unable to take his eyes off her. As they exchanged vows, he whispered, "You're my new beginning, Mia." She smiled, believing their love could overcome any shadow of his past. But as they danced under a sky of lanterns, Mia didn't see the look of concern on Ethan, the assistant, watching from afar. In the days that followed, married life felt like a dream. Dominic whisked her away for weekend trips to his Malibu beach house, where they walked the shore at dawn. Mia, however, couldn't ignore the rumors still circulating, stories of Dominic slipping back into old habits on business trips. "You trust me, don't you?" he asked one night, sensing the doubt in her eyes. Mia hesitated but nodded. "I trust you, Dominic, just don't make me look like a fool." He pulled her into a kiss, promising loyalty. But deep down, Mia knew Dominic Vanderbilt's world was a minefield, and she had just stepped into it. Dominic Vanderbilt's mansion in Beverly Hills, with its expansive windows and views of the shimmering hills, felt like a fairy tale in the early months of Mia's marriage. The couple lived in a whirlwind of glamour, dinners with Los Angeles, elite weekend trips to Napa Valley, and quiet evenings in the living room, where Mia read poetry while Dominic reviewed luxe éclat reports. Despite lingering rumors about Dominic's womanizing past, he seemed determined to prove his devotion. "You're my anchor, Mia," he'd say, kissing her forehead. And Mia, her heart full of hope, believed their love could overcome any obstacle. But fate had other plans. 6 months after the wedding, Mia discovered she was pregnant. The news came on a sunny morning as she sipped coffee on the balcony, the pregnancy test trembling in her hands. "Dominic," she called, her voice thick with emotion. He appeared at the door, still in pajamas, his hair tousled. "What's wrong, love?" Mia held up the test, tears in her eyes. "We're going to be parents, twins." Dominic's face lit up and he pulled her into a hug, spinning her in the air. "Twins? That's incredible." That night they celebrated with an intimate dinner, dreaming up names and imagining the future. Mia suggested Andrew after her father and Kevin because she thought the name sounded strong. Dominic agreed, already planning a nursery with the best money could. The pregnancy, however, was far from easy. Mia faced intense morning sickness and fatigue that left her drained. Dominic, initially attentive, hired the best doctors and nutritionists, but his packed schedule kept him away often on trips to New York or Paris. Mia, alone in the mansion, felt the weight of his absence but found solace in the kicks from the babies in her womb. "You two are my strength," she whispered, caressing her belly. She spent hours reading about motherhood, determined to be the best mother possible, even as loneliness enveloped her. In the 7th month, the nightmare began. One night, Mia woke with sharp pains, her body trembling with fever. "Dominic!" she screamed, but he was in London closing a deal. The housekeeper, Marta, a kind, middle-aged woman, called an ambulance. At Cedars-Sinai Hospital, doctors confirmed Mia was in premature labor. "We'll do everything to save the babies," said Dr. Nguyen, a calm-spoken obstetrician, as Mia, terrified, clutched Marta's hand. After hours of an agonizing delivery, Andrew and Kevin were born, tiny but healthy, weighing 1.8 kilos each. Mia, exhausted, wept as she saw them in the incubator, their fragile faces connected to tubes. "They're perfect," she whispered, though her heart ached. Dominic arrived at the hospital the next day, his face etched with guilt. "Mia, I should have been here," he said, holding her hand. She smiled weakly. "You're here now." But the delivery left deep scars. Mia developed a persistent fever, and tests revealed an autoimmune disease triggered by the stress of the birth and the complicated pregnancy. "It's lupus," Dr. Nguyen explained. "We can manage it with corticosteroids, but there will be side effects." Mia nodded, determined to recover for her children. But the news shook her. She looked at the twins in the neonatal ICU, vowing to be strong. The following months were a blur of medical appointments and sleepless nights. Andrew and Kevin, now home, were demanding babies, waking every few hours. Mia, despite her exhaustion, cherished every moment with them. Andrew's giggle when she made faces, the way Kevin gripped her finger tightly. But the corticosteroids began transforming her body. She gained weight rapidly, reaching 50 kilos more, and her favorite clothes no longer fit. The mirror, once a friend, became an enemy. "You're still beautiful," Marta said, but Mia saw doubt in her own eyes. She tried to convince herself that Dominic wouldn't care, that their love was deeper than appearances. Dominic, however, began to change. He came home late from meetings, reeking of whiskey and expensive perfume. "Work, Mia. You know how it is," he'd say, avoiding her gaze. The nights they once spent together became rare. Mia noticed his looks, no longer of admiration but of distance. One night, while changing Kevin's diaper, she confronted him. "Dominic, what's going on? You're barely home." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I'm under pressure, Mia. The company, the investors, and now the babies. It's too much." Her chest tightened. "And me? Am I too much too?" Dominic hesitated, and the silence was a knife. "You're different," he said finally. "It's not just the weight, it's everything." Mia swallowed her tears, refusing to crumble in front of him. The rejection intensified. Dominic started traveling more, leaving Mia with the twins and a staff of employees. At a dinner with Lux Eclat friends, he introduced her coldly. "My wife, Mia." The tone was distant, almost formal. Mia, in a loose dress to hide her body, felt pitying glances. An influencer whispered to another, "She's changed so much. Dominic must be bored." The words cut deep, but Mia lifted her chin, holding Andrew's hand as he slept in his stroller. "I won't let this define me," she thought. Alone. At night, Mia read to the twins, seeking solace. She picked up the picture of Dorian Gray, recalling her conversation with Dominic at the store opening. "Beauty is a mask," she murmured, closing the book. But the mask she wore, of perfect wife, strong mother, was cracking. Dominic, increasingly absent, didn't hide his return to old habits. Mia found a receipt from a West Hollywood bar with a lipstick note. "Call me D." She confronted him, but he just shrugged. "You're imagining things, Mia. Relax." His coldness was worse than any shout. Mia began questioning everything. How did I get here, she thought, watching her son sleep. She loved Andrew and Kevin more than anything, but the weight of the illness, the body she didn't recognize, and the husband who rejected her suffocated her. One night while Dominic was away, she looked at her wedding ring, the diamond now feeling like a chain. "I won't give up," she promised herself. "For them, I'll fight." But deep down, she knew the battle was just beginning. The Vanderbilt mansion in Beverly Hills, once a symbol of dreams for Mia, had become a prison of marble and glass. Mornings began with the cries of the twins, Andrew and Kevin, now nearly a year old, and ended in heavy silences, broken only by the distant sound of Dominic returning late at night. The scent of whiskey and expensive perfume he carried was a constant reminder of his growing distance. Mia, still battling lupus and the effects of the corticosteroids that caused her to gain 50 kilos, felt the weight not only on her body but in her soul. The mirror reflected a stranger. The vibrant woman who had captivated Dominic at the Luxe Éclat opening seemed to have vanished. Even so, she clung to the hope of saving her marriage, for her children and the love she still believed existed. Mia tried to keep a routine, caring for the twins with fierce devotion. Andrew, with his green eyes inherited from her, loved when she sang lullabies, while Kevin, more restless, giggled as he chased toys across the carpet. But Dominic's absence was a constant shadow. He spent weeks on business trips, and when home, he barely interacted with the children. "They're so small, Mia, they don't need me now," he'd say, dismissing her attempts to involve him. Mia, exhausted, tried to ignore the gossip reaching her through tabloids. Photos of Dominic at parties, always with a different woman by his side. "It's just work," she repeated to herself, but doubt gnawed at her heart. One night, Mia decided to confront him. Dominic arrived after midnight, his jacket slung over his shoulder, his face marked by an indifference she didn't recognize. "Dominic, we need to talk," she said firmly, holding Kevin, who had fallen asleep in her arms. He rolled his eyes, pouring himself a whiskey at the living room bar. "About what, Mia? I'm exhausted." She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of every word. "About us. About you going out every night, about the photos, the women. What's happening?" Dominic looked at her, his gaze cold. "You want the truth? You've changed, Mia. Look at you. You're not the woman I married." The words hit her like a punch. "Is it the weight? The corticosteroids? The illness? You think I chose this?" she asked, her voice trembling. Dominic shrugged cruelly. "It's not just the weight, it's everything. You're not interesting anymore." Mia felt tears burn, but she refused to let them fall. "And our children? You barely look at them." Dominic laughed, a dry, emotionless sound. "They're fine with you and the nannies. I pay for everything, don't I? What more do you want?" His coldness devastated her. Mia placed Kevin in his crib and stepped closer, trying to reach the man who had once proposed to her. "I want my husband back. I want the family we dreamed of." But Dominic just shook his head. "That doesn't exist anymore, Mia." And to be honest, it never did. Days later, the final blow came. Dominic called her to his home office, a room decorated with trophies from his career and photos of him with celebrities. He sat behind the desk like an executive closing a deal, not a husband. "I want a divorce," he said bluntly. Mia, seated across from him, felt the floor vanish. "Divorce? Dominic, we can try therapy, we can—" He cut her off, his tone sharp. "No, Mia, it's over. You and the kids can go back to your parents' house in Fresno. I'll pay child support for the twins, but don't expect anything else. We signed a prenup, remember?" The mention of the prenuptial agreement, which she'd signed with such confidence in their love, was like a stab. "You're kicking me out? With our children?" she asked, incredulous. Dominic didn't even meet her eyes. "It's better this way, for all of us." Mia spent the night awake, the twins sleeping beside her in the king-size bed that now felt too big. She held her wedding ring, the diamond glinting under the dim lamplight. "How did I get here?" she thought as silent tears fell. Dominic's arrogance, his cruelty in rejecting her for her appearance and discarding their children like a burden, revealed who he truly was. But the pain ran deeper. Mia felt she had failed, not just as a wife, but as a woman. The lupus, the weight, the exhaustion. It all felt like a punishment for daring to dream beyond Fresno. The next morning, she began to plan. Dominic was on a business trip, or as Mia suspected, on a yacht in Malibu with another woman. She gathered strength, packed the twins' things and her own, the few clothes that still fit. Marta, the housekeeper, found her in the nursery, packing diapers and toys. "You don't deserve this, dear," Marta said, her eyes teary. Mia smiled weakly. "It's not about deserving, it's about surviving for my kids." Marta hugged her, slipping an envelope of her personal savings into Mia's hand. "For you to start over. Don't tell him." Mia moved, accepted, promising to repay her one day. Before leaving, Mia left a letter for Dominic on the dining table. "You chose to throw away what we had. I hope you find the emptiness you deserve. But Andrew and Kevin won't grow up without love. That, I'll make sure of." She signed it firmly, refusing to beg. With the twins in her arms, she stepped into a taxi, the mansion shrinking in the rearview mirror. The driver, an elderly man, asked, "Where to, miss?" Mia took a deep breath, looking at Andrew and Kevin, who played with her fingers. Fresno for now, but not for long. On the drive, Mia stared out the window, the palm trees of Beverly Hills giving way to the open road. The pain of Dominic's abandonment was a weight, but also a spark. She thought of her father, of the resilience lessons he'd taught her. "Knowledge is your armor, Mia," he used to say. She held her sons tighter, determined not to let Dominic's rejection define her. In Fresno, she would rebuild her life, not as the discarded wife of a billionaire, but as Mia Harper, a woman with a future to conquer. The journey would be tough, but for the first time in months, she felt a flicker of hope. The sun rose over Santa Barbara, bathing the lush hills and golden sandy beaches in a soft light that seemed to promise new beginnings. Mia Harper, with Andrew and Kevin now 1 year old, left behind the oppressive glamour of Beverly Hills and the weight of Dominic Vanderbilt's rejection. The taxi that took her from Fresno to Santa Barbara stopped in front of a small rented bungalow, with a red-tiled roof and a modest garden where wildflowers struggled to grow. It wasn't Dominic's mansion, but for Mia, it was a sanctuary. A place where she could rebuild her life. With Marta's savings and the minimal child support Dominic sent for the twins, she knew the road would be tough, but her sons, sleeping in their strollers, were her reason to keep going. The first days in Santa Barbara were a test of resilience. Mia unpacked boxes filled with toys, clothes, and the few books she'd brought, while Andrew curiously crawled across the wooden floor, grabbing anything that shone, and Kevin, bolder, tried to climb the couch. "You two are going to keep me." "Busy, huh?" she said, laughing as she scooped them up. But at night, when the house fell silent, reality hit. Bills piled up, rent, diapers, food, and Dominic's support barely covered the basics. Worse, her lupus flared up again. A relapse brought fevers and joint pain that left her exhausted, and the fear of needing corticosteroids again terrified. I can't go back to being someone I don't recognize in the mirror, she thought, staring at her trembling hands. Mia, however, refused to give in to despair. Inspired by her father's lessons, who always said, "Strength comes from within, not from without," she sought alternatives to manage her illness. A neighbor, Elena, a middle-aged woman with gray hair and a warm smile, invited her to an outdoor yoga class at Butterfly Beach. "It's free, Mia. Just you, the ocean, and your breath," Elena said, handing her a borrowed mat. Mia hesitated. How could she find time with 2 babies? But Elena insisted, "Bring the boys, they'll love the sand." At the first class, under the orange dawn sky, Mia felt her stiff body relax with each deep breath. Andrew and Kevin, sitting on a blanket, giggled as they played with seashells. For the first time in months, Mia felt a thread of hope. Yoga became a routine. Every morning before the twins woke, Mia practiced in the backyard, following videos on her phone. She also began meditating, sitting in silence as the sun rose, visualizing a life where she wasn't defined by Dominic's rejection or her illness. "You are stronger than this," she repeated, like a mantra. Slowly, the lupus pains eased, and she weaned off the corticosteroids, consulting a new doctor in Santa Barbara who supported integrative therapies. "Your body is responding, Mia. Keep going," he said, impressed by her determination. The extra weight began to fade, not out of vanity, but because Mia wanted to feel alive again. The twins were her greatest motivation. Andrew, with his insatiable curiosity, pointed at birds in the backyard and babbled "bird" with a smile that melted Mia's heart. Kevin, fearless, was already attempting his first steps, falling and laughing before trying again. "You're like me, little one. You don't give up," Mia said, kissing his forehead. She spent hours playing with them at Stearns Wharf Park, where the smell of salt and the sound of waves created simple but precious memories. But Dominic's absence weighed on the boys, even so young. One night, as Mia read them a story, Andrew pointed to a drawing of a father and asked, "Daddy?" Mia swallowed the lump in her throat. "He's busy, my love, but Mommy's here, always." To survive financially, Mia landed a part-time job as a receptionist at a physical therapy clinic. The pay was modest, but the environment was welcoming, and the owner, Dr. Susan, allowed her to bring the twins on quieter days. "You're a warrior, Mia," Susan said, impressed by her ability to balance work and motherhood. Mia smiled, but inside she battled insecurity. "What if I'm not enough for them?" she thought, watching Andrew and Kevin sleep. But every laugh from her sons, every small milestone, reignited her determination. Santa Barbara's community began to embrace her. Elena introduced her to a group of single mothers who met weekly at a seaside cafe. There, Mia heard stories of resilience that echoed her own. One woman, Alice, a hairdresser raising 3 kids alone, became her closest friend. "You've already been through the worst, Mia. The rest is just climbing the mountain," Alice said over coffee as the twins played with building blocks. Mia laughed, but the words stuck with her. "Climb the mountain," she repeated, resolved to turn pain into strength. One night, as the twins slept, Mia found a flyer from the University of California, Santa Barbara, offering evening psychology courses. She hesitated. How could she afford tuition? How could she juggle studies with work and the kids? But something inside urged her to try. Dad always said knowledge is freedom, she thought. With a partial scholarship and tight savings, she enrolled. At her first class, sitting in a room full of eager young students, Mia felt a mix of fear and excitement. The professor, a man with a deep voice, asked, "Why are you here?" Mia raised her hand, surprising herself. "I want to understand the human mind, and I want to help people like me, who faced hell and are still standing." The professor smiled, and Mia knew she was on the right path. Driving home, with the salty Santa Barbara breeze blowing through the window of the used car she'd bought, Mia glanced at the twins in the back seat. Andrew clutched a teddy bear, and Kevin slept with his mouth open. "We're going to build a new life, boys," she whispered. The illness, Dominic's rejection, the fear. It was all still there, but Mia felt a strength growing inside her. Santa Barbara wasn't just a new home. It was the stage for her transformation. She was no longer the discarded wife of a billionaire. She was Mia Harper, mother, survivor, and now a woman with a purpose. Santa Barbara, with its tree-lined streets and the constant murmur of the Pacific Ocean, had become more than a refuge for Mia Harper. It was the ground where she replanted her roots. At 29, with Andrew and Kevin now 2 years old, Mia embarked on a new journey by enrolling in the evening psychology program at the University of California, Santa Barbara. The decision, made after finding a flyer that seemed like a call from fate, was not easy. Tuition, even with a partial scholarship, drained her savings, and balancing studies with her job at the physical therapy clinic and raising the twins was like walking a tightrope. But Mia, strengthened by yoga, meditation, and the determination to give her sons a better life, was ready for the challenge. Nights at the university were a contrast to the vibrant chaos of her home life. While Andrew and Kevin slept under the care of Elena, the neighbor who had become a surrogate grandmother, Mia sat in brightly lit classrooms, her notebook filled with notes and her heart full of purpose. Clinical psychology classes fascinated her, especially discussions about trauma and resilience. Trauma doesn't define a person. It's how they respond to it that shapes who they become, said Professor Daniel Coleman, a 34-year-old man with kind eyes and a contagious passion for teaching. Mia, seated in the front row, felt the words echo her own story. She began processing Dominic's abandonment, her battle with lupus, and the insecurity that haunted her after the divorce. Writing papers on post-traumatic stress was like looking in the mirror, but instead of running, Mia embraced each revelation. The twins, now more active, filled her days with joy and challenges. Andrew, with his insatiable curiosity, asked why about everything, from the shape of clouds to why waves crashed on the beach. Kevin, ever fearless, ran around the bungalow's backyard, turning any object into an adventure. Mia took them to outings at the Santa Barbara Zoo, where they laughed at monkeys, or to picnics on the beach where they built sand castles. But nights were long, with Mia studying until dawn after putting the boys to bed. "You tired, Mommy?" Andrew asked one night, seeing her yawn over a book. Mia smiled, stroking his face. "A little, my love, but it's a good kind of tired. It's for us." The support of Santa Barbara's community was crucial. Alice, her friend from the single mothers group, became a constant presence, watching the twins when Mia had exams or tight deadlines. "You're a machine, Mia. I don't know how you do it," Alice said, brewing coffee at the seaside cafe where they met. Mia laughed but confessed her insecurities. "Sometimes I feel like I'm failing them. What if I'm not enough?" Alice held her hand firmly. "Look at your kids. They're happy, healthy. You're more than enough." Those words, along with support from Elena and Dr. Susan, her boss at the clinic, gave Mia the strength to keep going. Over time, Mia stood out at the university. Her professors noticed her dedication, especially Daniel, who encouraged her to share her perspectives in class. During a discussion on resilience, Mia spoke openly about her experience with lupus and divorce, without naming names. "I learned that pain can be a teacher if you don't let it consume you," she said, her voice steady but laced with emotion. The room fell silent, and Daniel, impressed, asked her to develop the topic in a final paper. Mia's essay, titled "Rebuilding: The Self-Resilience After Trauma," earned top marks and praise from the professor. "You have a gift, Mia. Your story can inspire others," he said, handing back the graded paper. The years passed in a blink. Mia, now 35, graduated with honors, a milestone she celebrated with Andrew and Kevin, now 8, at a beach picnic. "Mommy's psychologist now," Kevin shouted, running with a kite while Andrew wrote "Congrats, Mommy" in the sand. Mia, tears in her eyes, felt pride not just for graduating, but for raising 2 vibrant boys despite all odds. With savings and a small loan, she opened a practice on a quiet Santa Barbara street with a simple sign, Mia Harper, psychologist. The space, decorated with plants and cozy chairs, was welcoming, designed to make her clients, many of them women facing trauma and stress, feel safe. The practice quickly gained attention. Mia used her own experience to connect with patients, helping them navigate divorces, chronic illnesses, and societal pressures. "You're not defined by what hurt you," she told a client who had suffered emotional abuse. "You're defined by what you do with that pain." Her empathy and wisdom, forged in her own struggles, began to spread her reputation. A local journalist wrote an article about the psychologist transforming lives in Santa Barbara, and soon Mia was receiving invitations to speak at community events. One such invitation came from Daniel Coleman, now 40, who had left the university to lead a mental health organization. He met her at a cafe after one of her talks, his eyes shining with admiration. "Mia, your story is powerful. I want you to speak at our annual symposium in Los Angeles about overcoming trauma, everything you've lived through." Mia hesitated, unsure. "Me? Speak to hundreds of people?" Daniel smiled, leaning across the table. "You already inspire your patients. Why not inspire the world?" The invitation scared her but also thrilled her. She accepted, feeling it was the next step in her transformation. The night before the lecture, Mia sat with Andrew and Kevin, who now understood more about their father's absence. "Why doesn't Daddy come see us?" Andrew asked, holding a drawing he'd made at school. Mia took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. "Sometimes people make choices we don't understand, my love. But you have me, and I have you. That's what matters." Kevin, ever protective, hugged her. "You're the best mommy." Mia smiled, holding back tears. She knew the lecture would be more than a speech. It was a chance to turn her pain into a beacon for others. The auditorium of the Los Angeles Convention Center was packed, with over 500 people awaiting the keynote address of the Mental Health Symposium. The lights dimmed, and Mia Harper, now 35, stepped onto the stage, her heart racing under the navy dress she had chosen carefully. Her brown hair, now shorter and shinier, reflected the light, and her green eyes, once heavy with doubt, shone with purpose. Behind her, a screen displayed the title of her talk, Rebuilding the Self, the Power of Resilience. Mia took a deep breath, gripping the microphone, and looked at the audience. Psychologists, activists, trauma survivors. "I am not a victim of my story," she began, her voice steady. "I am the builder of my future." The crowd's silence turned into warm applause, and Mia knew that moment would change everything. The lecture was a triumph. Mia shared her journey, the meteoric rise as Dominic Vanderbilt's wife, the devastation of lupus, the cruel rejection and divorce, and her reconstruction in Santa Barbara. She spoke of Andrew and Kevin, her twins, as the strength that kept her standing, and how yoga, meditation, and psychology helped her overcome illness and trauma. "Resilience isn't erasing pain," she said, holding back tears. "It's learning to carry the pain and still build something beautiful." When she finished, the audience rose in a standing ovation, and Daniel Coleman backstage smiled with pride. "You nailed it, Mia," he said, squeezing her hand. Mia, still trembling with adrenaline, just laughed. "I only told the truth." The impact of the lecture reverberated beyond Los Angeles. A video of the speech, shared on social media, went viral, reaching millions of views. Newspapers like the Los Angeles Times and mental health magazines published articles about the Santa Barbara psychologist transforming lives. Mia, initially overwhelmed by the attention, saw an opportunity. Inspired by the women she counseled in her practice, she founded Luz Renovada, an NGO dedicated to supporting women with post-traumatic stress and survivors of abusive relationships. The organization offered affordable therapy, support groups, and empowerment workshops, many led by Mia. "I want every woman to know she can rewrite her story," she said in a PBS interview, seated in her office decorated with plants and photos of the twins. At 36, Mia published her book, From Pain to Purpose, A Journey of Resilience. The account, written with raw honesty and psychological insights, detailed her struggle with lupus, Dominic's abandonment, and raising Andrew and Kevin as a single mother. The book, released by an independent publisher, became an instant bestseller, appearing on the New York Times list. Readers worldwide wrote to Mia, sharing how her story inspired them to face their own traumas. "You made me believe I can be stronger than my pain," wrote a woman from Chicago. Mia kept these letters in a box, reading them on nights when exhaustion hit. As her career soared, her personal life blossomed. Daniel Coleman, now a close friend, became something more. He invited her to dinners at seaside restaurants like the Lark, where they talked about psychology, art, and dreams. Daniel, with his gentle humor and genuine admiration for Mia, was different from Dominic. "You don't have to prove anything to me, Mia," he said one night as they walked along the Santa Barbara beach, waves lapping at their feet. "You're already incredible." Mia smiled, her heart light. Their romance grew slowly, rooted in mutual respect and a deep connection. "He truly sees me," Mia thought, something Dominic never did. Andrew and Kevin, now 7, thrived in Santa Barbara. Andrew, sensitive and curious, loved reading adventure books and drawing ocean landscapes. Kevin, fearless and protective, led playground games and dreamed of being a firefighter. Mia enrolled them in a local school where they made friends and joined activities like soccer and the science club. But Dominic's absence still affected them. One afternoon, as they did homework, Kevin asked, "Why doesn't our dad like us?" Mia, seated at the kitchen table, felt her heart tighten. "It's not that he doesn't like you," she said, choosing her words carefully. "He made choices that took him away, but you are loved, and that will never change." Andrew, holding a pencil, added, "You're enough, Mommy." Mia hugged them, hiding her tears. Mia's fame grew internationally. She was invited to speak in London, Sydney, and Toronto, addressing trauma and empowerment. Luz Renovada expanded, opening branches in other California cities and receiving foundation donations. At a New York conference, Mia was honored with a Social Impact Award, and her image, a smiling woman with brown hair and bright eyes, graced the cover of Psychology Today. "I didn't do this alone," she said in her acceptance speech. "My children, my friends, my community, they gave me wings." At home, Mia kept things simple. She and the twins lived in the same bungalow, now filled with Andrew's drawings and Kevin's soccer trophies. Daniel spent evenings there, helping with dinner or reading stories to the boys. One night, as they watched the sunset at Butterfly Beach, Daniel took Mia's hand. "Have you thought about the future? Not just professionally, but ours?" Mia looked at him, her heart racing. "I have, and I like what I see." He smiled, squeezing her hand, and Mia felt that for the first time, love didn't come with a price. Meanwhile, in Beverly Hills, Dominic Vanderbilt, now 41, was in his office, flipping through channels on his flat-screen TV. He stopped when he saw Mia on a CNN interview, talking about Luz Renovada and her bestseller. Her beauty, renewed and even more radiant, stunned him. "She's incredible," he murmured, feeling a pang of regret. Without thinking, he grabbed his phone and sent a message. "Mia, it's Dominic. Saw your interview. You look amazing. Can we talk? I want to see you and the boys." Mia, reading the message that night, felt a chill in her stomach. She looked at Andrew and Kevin, sleeping in their rooms, and thought of the pain Dominic had caused. "Not now," she replied curtly. "If you want to see your sons, prove you deserve it." She blocked his number, determined to protect her peace and that of her children. The salty breeze of Santa Barbara blew gently through the downtown streets, where the aroma of roasted coffee mingled with the distant sound of waves. Mia Harper, now 36, walked toward Handlebar Coffee Roasters, a charming cafe with wooden tables and walls adorned with local art. She wore a simple but elegant beige dress, her brown hair shining under the afternoon sun. The message from Dominic Vanderbilt, received weeks earlier after he saw her on a CNN interview, still echoed in her mind. "Mia, it's Dominic. Saw your interview. You look amazing. Can we talk? I want to see you and the boys." Mia had hesitated, but decided to meet him. Not for his sake, but for Andrew and Kevin, now 9, who deserved at least the chance for a present father. "Be strong, Mia," she murmured to herself, stepping into the cafe. Dominic was already there, seated at a corner table, with the same arrogant charm that had once captivated her. At 41, he still had his dark brown hair swept back and an impeccable suit, but there was something new in his eyes, a mix of nostalgia and desperation. He stood as she approached, his smile forced. "Mia, you look stunning," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. Mia sat, her posture straight, her green eyes locked on his. "Thank you, Dominic. What do you want?" Her voice was calm but firm, leaving no room for small talk. He hesitated, clearly unprepared for her coolness. "I want to talk. About us. About the boys. I saw you on TV and I realized how much I messed up." Dominic's speech began, as rehearsed as it was manipulative. "You were always the woman of my life, Mia. I was an idiot, let work blind me. But now I see what I lost. You, the boys. I want my family back." He leaned forward, trying to take her hand. But Mia pulled away, the gesture subtle but final. "Your family?" she asked, with a slight tone of disbelief. "You abandoned Andrew and Kevin. Never called, never visited. They're 9 years old, Dominic, and they barely know who you are." He looked down, uncomfortable. "I know I screwed up, but I can change. Give me a chance." Mia took a deep breath, recalling the nights Andrew asked about his father, the emptiness in Kevin's eyes when he saw other kids with their dads at the playground. "You want a chance?" she said, her voice sharp. "Then prove it to your sons, not to me. They deserve a father, not a stranger who shows up when it suits him. But me? I'm not yours anymore, Dominic. You discarded me when I needed you most. Mocked me because of my illness, my body. You have no idea what I've built without you." Dominic opened his mouth, but words failed him. For the first time, he looked small, stripped of his arrogance. "You saw my interview and thought you could waltz back in like nothing happened," Mia continued, with a serenity that masked years of pain. "But I'm not the woman who begged for your love anymore. I'm a psychologist and author, the founder of an NGO that helps women rise again. My sons are happy and so am I. If you want to be part of their lives, start there. But me, I'm out of your reach." She stood, her gaze unwavering. "Don't contact me again unless it's about the boys." Dominic, stunned, merely nodded, muttering an "understood" as she walked out of the cafe, head held high. Returning home, Mia felt a lightness she hadn't experienced in years. The confrontation with Dominic wasn't just a rejection. It was the final release of her pasts. Wait. She drove to her new home, a modern mansion in Montecito, bought with the profits from her book and lectures. It was a spacious home, with windows capturing the sunset and a backyard where Andrew and Kevin ran freely. Unlike the cold opulence of Dominic's mansion, this was a space filled with warmth, with the twins' drawings on the walls and books scattered across the living room. That evening, Daniel Coleman waited for her on the porch, overlooking the ocean. He wore a simple blue shirt, his graying temples glinting in the golden light. Andrew and Kevin played in the backyard, laughing as they kicked a soccer ball. "How did the meeting go?" Daniel asked, a hint of concern in his voice. Mia smiled, sitting beside him. "It was the closure I needed. I told him if he wants, he can try to reconnect with the boys. But me? I'm exactly where I want to be." Daniel laughed, relieved, and took her hand. "You're a force of nature, Mia Harper." He stood, pulling a velvet box from his pocket. Mia's heart raced. "Mia, you've transformed your life, your sons' lives, and so many others' lives. And somehow you've transformed mine too," he said, his voice soft but steady. He opened the box, revealing a simple but brilliant sapphire ring. "Will you build a future with me? Not a fairy tale, but something real, with you, Andrew, and Kevin?" Tears streamed down Mia's face, but this time they were of joy. "Yes, Daniel," she replied, her voice choked. He slipped the ring onto her finger and they embraced, the sound of the twins' laughter in the background. Mia stepped into the mansion, the boys running to hug her. "Mommy, is Daniel gonna be our dad?" Kevin asked, his eyes sparkling. Mia laughed, kneeling to embrace them. "He'll be our partner, our friend, and you'll always be my greatest loves." Andrew, holding her hand, pointed to the ring. "It's pretty, Mommy, like you." Mia hugged them tightly, feeling the weight of the past dissolve in the promise of a future filled with love and stability. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Mia looked at her new home, at Daniel, and at her sons. She was no longer the broken young woman from Beverly Hills, nor the discarded wife of a billionaire. She was Mia Harper, a woman who had turned pain into purpose, ready to live the next chapter with courage and love. We want to hear from you. Drop a comment with an emoji that represents what this story meant to you. Have you ever lived through a story of triumph? Share it with us. Give Mia's story a rating from 0 to 10 and tell us why. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any videos, and share this incredible story with others who love tales of resilience. Join our community and let's spread inspiration together.